There's a quiet crisis unfolding across American higher education, and it's not happening in the lecture halls. It's happening on the balance sheets of hundreds of colleges, including some of the most famous names in the world. This financial instability, it really threatens to reshape the entire foundation of higher ed as we know it. Okay, let's just dive right in with an example that might shock you. Yale University. I mean, even with one of the biggest endowments on the planet, a new tax on their investment income is forcing their hand. They're actually offering retirement incentives to staff and even delaying huge construction projects. So when even the wealthiest schools are feeling the strain, you know the problem is serious. And Yale isn't alone here, not by a long shot. Brown University has also had to make some pretty significant budget cuts, partly because federal research funding got frozen, and that's led to them cutting some academic programs and losing faculty positions. Seeing multiple Ivy League schools make these kinds of painful, public choices, well, that signals a really deep systemic issue. This isn't just a private school problem either. Take the University of Arizona. They are scrambling to close a massive $177 million deficit. That has led to dozens of positions being eliminated, including some tenured faculty. So from the elite Ivies to our huge public universities, the financial squeeze is definitely on. So the big question is, how did we get here? How did so many of our most prestigious and, you'd think, well-funded universities find themselves in this kind of trouble? How do institutions with billion-dollar grants end up on such shaky ground? Well, the truth is, the way we've all been taught to think about a college's financial health is pretty much all wrong. Those annual reports, the big endowment figures, net assets, they just don't tell the whole story. To see what's really going on, you have to look past the glossy brochures and actually follow the cash. And this quote about Brandeis University just says it all. Publicly, the university was projecting this image of complete financial strength, but a deeper analysis of their cash flow showed their position was weak, or as the analyst put it, severely anemic. And it's this huge gap between perception and reality that's allowed so many colleges to get into such deep trouble. So how do we get a more accurate picture? We start with a better metric, primary net cash flow. Just forget about the accounting surpluses for a second. This measures the real dollars coming in and going out from a university's main business, which is education. The key question is, are they actually generating cash, or are they just burning through it to keep the lights on? But there's an even more critical number to look at, and it's called staying power. This is the number that tells you straight up how long a college has left before it runs out of money. The calculation is simple and, honestly, kind of brutal. You take the total cash they can actually spend and divide it by how much cash they burn through each year. The result is basically a countdown clock, the number of years they have left. So what's really behind this? What's causing so many schools to burn through their cash at such an alarming rate? Well, it isn't just one single problem. It's more like a perfect storm. A whole bunch of powerful financial and demographic pressures all hitting at the exact same time. Let's break down the forces that are hammering our colleges. First, you've got the demographic cliff. A huge drop in the number of high school graduates means fewer customers, plain and simple. At the same time, costs are skyrocketing. And all of this is happening just as public trust in the value of a degree is falling, federal funding is getting shaky, and new taxes are hitting endowments. It is truly a recipe for disaster. And listen, this isn't just some abstract theory. A really detailed cash flow analysis was done on 44 private colleges in New England. And the findings? They're stark. Right now, today, 15 of those schools are already facing serious liquidity challenges. That's more than a third of them already in the danger zone. And it's only going to get worse. Remember that demographic cliff we talked about? Well, if you factor in just a 10% drop in enrollment, which most experts see as pretty much inevitable, the number of at-risk schools in that same group jumps from 15 all the way up to 21. All of a sudden, nearly half of them are on shaky ground. And the numbers just keep getting uglier. A 15% drop in enrollment, which is entirely possible in places like the Northeast and Midwest, pushes 29 of those 44 schools onto a potential path towards shutting down. We're talking 2/3 of them. This just shows you how incredibly vulnerable these institutions are to what might seem like pretty small shifts. So you've got to be asking, if the risks are this high, why aren't more alarm bells ringing? Well, the problem is that the official system, the one designed by the federal government to keep an eye on college finances, it's fundamentally broken. Let me give you the perfect case study. Back in 2019, the federal government's official rating for Birmingham Southern College was financially responsible. But that cash flow model we've been talking about, it showed the school was already functionally insolvent with less than a year of cash left. The college closed its doors for good in 2024. The federal system was looking in the rearview mirror. The cash flow model was looking at the cliff right ahead. Now, you might be thinking, hey, college closures are nothing new. And you're right. But as this chart shows, most of the failures in the past were for-profit schools. The tectonic shift we're seeing now is that these same pressures are threatening the very bedrock of American higher ed, our traditional, private, nonprofit institutions. So what's the way out of this mess? For the hundreds of institutions staring this future down, the road ahead is going to be incredibly difficult. Survival is going to demand some really tough choices and a complete rethinking of what it even means to be a university today. And let's be real for a minute. Wishful thinking is not a plan. So many struggling colleges just write grow enrollment in their strategic plans. But just hoping to scoop up students from other schools that fail, that's a zero-sum game. It's a gamble that most are just destined to lose. Instead, there are really three tough paths forward. First, strategic downsizing, making smart, phased cuts now to avoid those panicked, catastrophic layoffs down the road. Second, they need to focus on a specific job to be done. Figure out the one thing the school can be the absolute best at and get rid of everything else. And third, proactive mergers, seeing consolidation not as a failure, but as a strategic way to preserve a legacy. So what does this all boil down to? It means the days of the comprehensive university. You know, that old model of trying to be all things to all people with dozens of departments, fancy student centers, and climbing walls. Those days are over. For the vast majority of schools, that model just isn't sustainable anymore. So I want to leave you with one final question to think about. For all the students, parents, and alumni out there, a proud history and a powerful brand are amazing things to have, but they can't pay the heating bills. In this new reality, you have to ask yourself, is your school's reputation actually strong enough to survive the hard